Okay, so let's take the calculations of volumes one step further, and let's work together through on finding the volume of the burgundy figure, and then you can find the one on the blue figure. So for burgundy, let's first find the volume of the entire figure and ignore for a little bit, if you will, the volume that's missing in the middle there. We'll get back to that. So volume is big BH. So it's the area of the base times the height. So in this case, it's pi r squared, and the radius is 5. Seems to be pretty popular today. So it's pi times 5 squared, which is 25 pi, which is 25 times 3.1416, which works out to 78.54. You have seen that at least twice so far today. Now, I have to multiply that by the height, which is 18 inches or centimeters, whatever you want to call it. And that gives me 1413.72. Okay, but the difference between this, now up until now, we've only dealt with solid cylinders. So if it was a solid cylinder, a burgundy one, that would be your answer. But now we have a little bit of a problem. The little bit of a problem we have now is that there's a chunk taken out of the middle. So let's figure out what that cylinder would be. In this case, it's a cylinder with the same height of 18, but the radius is 3. So we're going to do 9 inches squared, which is I'm doing this little shorthand here. The radius is 3, so 3 squared is 9, times pi times the height. When I multiply all of those, I get 508.9392. And now I subtract 1413.72 minus the 508.9392. All you're doing is taking away that core in the middle, leaving you with the, if you will, the donut shape in that cylinder that it goes so high. So that gives me 904.78078, and then round off however they tell you. You try the blue one. Go ahead. Okay, so again, volume is big BH, area of the base times the height. In this case, the area of the base works out to be, and because it tells you the radius, not the diameter, the radius is 16, square that, that's 256 times 3.1416, which gives me a whopping 804.2496. But that's just the area of the base. We now have to multiply by the height, which is 4. And that gives me 3,216.9984, real close to 3217. Now let's do that piece in the middle that you can see is missing here. This is like the insulation that goes around foam piping, or you could look at it as like a roll of masking or duct tape, okay? That volume is going to be, in this case, the radius is 5, so it's 5 squared times 3.1416 times 4, which walks out, I didn't write this properly. I should have these squared on the outside of the parenthesis. But it does work out to be 314.16, which is the correct calculation. So now I have to subtract 3216.9984, the big one, minus the piece in the middle, which was 314.16, and that gives me a total of 2,902.8384. All right, you can read it over and calculate this one. Go ahead. All right, so it's just a rectangular prism volume formula. Area of the base times the height, which is 16 times 24, then times the height. The height is not 18 because it asks to fill it to a depth of 15 inches, not all the way. So multiplying by 15, and that volume comes out to 384 times 15, which is 5,760 cubic inches. That in turn needs to be divided by 500 cubic inches because that's how much per minute. 5760 divided by 500 is 11.52 minutes, and it's in round to the nearest minute. Take you 12 minutes to get that done. Okay. Greenhouse pictured below can be modeled as a rectangular prism with a half cylinder on top. The rectangular prism is 20 feet wide, 12 feet high, 45 feet long. the half cylinder has a diameter of 10 feet. You know that because the whole has a radius of, it has a diameter of 20 feet and a radius of 10 feet. Good. Okay, so figure it out. Nearest cubic foot. What's the volume? Okay, so volume, area of the base times the height, but we're going to have to do it twice here and add them up. As far as the rectangular prism, it's going to be 20 times 45, which is the area of the base, times that height, which is 12. So that's 900 times 12, which is 10,800 cubic feet. As far as the cylinder goes, got to keep in mind this is half a cylinder, not a whole cylinder. So it's going to be pi r squared for the area of the base, big B. That's 100 times 3.1416, which is 314.16. And then we have to multiply it by the 45-foot height, if you will. That's what I come up with. But then I have to divide it by 2 because I'm only getting half a cylinder. So that gives me 7,068.6 cubic feet. Now, in order to find the total volume, I've got to add them up. When I add them, I get 17,869 feet, choice 1. Now, what happens when it comes to a point and we start talking about cones, which would be even more formulas to remember? If it comes to a point, you just divide by 3. That's all you got to remember. One simple little thing, no matter what the figure is, cone, whatever type of pyramid, doesn't make a difference. So we still have volume is area of the base, big B, times the height, and then we divide by 3 when it comes to figuring these out. So I'll show you the first one. Volume is area of the base times the height, which will be 5 times 5, that's the base, times the height, which is 6. We call that height the altitude, okay? And then that gives me 150, but because it comes to a point, I need to divide by 3. So the final answer is 50 centimeters cubed. You try the pink one. Go ahead. Okay, so area of the base times the height, same thing as before. 6 times the height, in this case the altitude is 8. That's 288 centimeters cubed, divided by 3 is 96 centimeters cubed. So if it comes to a point, divide by 3. Do everything else the same. Okay, try the blue one. All right, we're going to get, in this particular case, you needed to do a little leg work, to do the right triangle on the inside to find that altitude. And we know that this leg of the right triangle is 6 because it's half of the 12. And the height, we're going to call x, and the slant there is 8. So 6 squared plus x squared is 8 squared, and that works out to be, subtracting 36 from both sides, 28. So x is the square root of 28, which is about 5.3. So that gives me the altitude height of 5.3. So recognize that right triangle in there and use the Pythagorean theorem when they don't directly give you the altitude. Okay, so it's 12 times, ooh, that should be 12 times 10. I didn't recognize that. Oh man, I thought it was 12 times. That was just an oversight. So give me 636, and when I divide 636 by 3, I get 212. All right. So, again, it's 12 times 10. I thought it had said 12. Sorry about that. Times 5.3. That's 636, but it comes to a point, so I have to divide by 3, which gives me 212. This is nice. They give you the altitude in the problem. Find the volume to the nearest tenth. Go ahead. Okay, so volume is the area of the base times the height. So that would be 10 times 8 times the height, which is 6. That's 480 cubic inches divided by 3 because it comes to a point. Anytime it comes to a point, you divide by 3. That's 160. So here's a cone. Same thing, comes to a point, divide by 3. Find that volume. Area of the base times the height. This time the base is a circle. So I do pi r squared, which is pi times. Now, I made it a point to tell you that the radius is 4 to clarify, because I think the picture is a little bit, could be misinterpreted. So the radius is 4, which is why I said that. So that's 16 pi equals 16 times 3.1416. That gives me 50.2656. And then I have to multiply by that height of 9. That gives me 452.3904. Then I have to divide by 3, which is 150.8 cubic inches. 150.8. So again, if it comes to a point, we divide by 3. Now, there's one last figure to do. We got to do 2 of those very quickly. A sphere. It's just 4/3 pi r cubed. So this is one formula which I think is worth knowing, okay? 4/3 pi r cubed. Plug them in. I'll show you the first one. I'll do it with you here. It's 4/3 times pi times the radius, which in this case is 25.2 cubed. So when I do 25.2 to the 3rd power times 4/3, I get 201,100.1997. And then I have to divide by 3. See, what I did was I multiplied by the 4, and then I divided by the 3. You could alternatively just multiply by the fraction 4/3. I didn't do that. It works the same either way. That gives me 67,033.4. So remember that formula, volume is 4/3 pi r cubed, and you can either multiply by the whole 4/3 at once, or what I do in both of these is multiply by the 4, figure out the numerator, then divide by the 3. Go ahead, find that volume. All right, so volume is 4/3 pi times 18 nanometers cubed, which works out to be 73,287.2448. But that includes the multiplying by 4 and everything. I now have to divide by 3, which gives me 24,429.1. Your turn. So the volume is 4/3 pi r cubed, and the radius, of course, is half of the 15 inches. So it's 4/3 times pi times 7.5 cubed, which is 5,001.45 divided by 3, which works out to be 1767.1. If you didn't do the times 4 divided by 3 in 2 steps and just multiplied by the fraction 4/3, you would skip this line about 5,300, whatever, and get directly to the bottom line. Choice number 2. What's the summary? Well, know the formula. Volume is the area of the base times the height whenever you want to find any volume, and if it comes to a point, divide by 3. I should have also written know your sphere formula. All right, have a great day.